Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're here with HReasily and an esteemed panel of business leaders to discuss navigating the inevitable digital transformation of SMEs. Even today, SMEs use manual and outdated internal HR processes, and certainly most are interfacing with traditional service providers in insurance and banking. This will inevitably change. In today's session, we're going to explore the advantages given to SMEs who embrace that change now, instead of waiting for the inevitable. My name is Andrew Baisley. I'm the Managing Director of Tech in Asia Studios. We're the multimedia production arm of Tech in Asia, helping our editorial team produce visual content, organizing events just like this one, and helping brands connect to Tech in Asia's audience through compelling storytelling. Before we jump in, please allow me to introduce our guests. First, we have Dennis Ning, Chief Revenue Officer, SME Ecosystems Enterprise Business for Asia and Africa at Prudential. Dennis has been in the financial services industry for more than 20 years, with experiences ranging from insurance sales, banking, and consultation. In his current role, Dennis helps SMEs in these markets focus on their growth while protecting their most valuable asset, people. Next, we have Edmund Lewis, founder and CEO of eBusiness Singapore, SGeBIZ. At SGeBIZ, Edmund has developed an e-procurement system known as Easy Procure to automate the procurement processes and resolve cash flow or productivity issues faced by companies in various industries. Edmund has helped more than 1,500 companies increase productivity with the use of various grants, and more importantly, improving their cash flow to ensure scalability. We're also joined by Darrell, Director of Product Strategy and Risk Management at CIMB. Darrell has 11 years in banking, spanning credit risk, product, and analytics in the SME space. Darrell recently won the Global Business Outlook Best SME Finance Bank 2020 for CIMB Singapore. Congrats on that, Darrell.
Thank you.
Finally, we're pleased to welcome Pascal Henry, the co-founder and CEO of HReasily. HReasily is an HR tech company providing HR SaaS solutions with over 60,000 SMEs on its platform across Asia. With more than 10 years of experience running an HR and recruitment company, Pascal's initiative to build HReasily was a direct result of firsthand experience with the lack of affordable digitization tools. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to join us at Tech in Asia Conference 2020. I want to start with, welcome everyone. Thank you. I just want to start with a reflection and your views on the current state of things. Edmund, why don't we start with you, given that you've worked with so many SMEs in the region. In your view, what are the issues that you see kind of affecting SMEs today in terms of their efforts to digitize?
Thanks, Andrew. So first and foremost, right, in Easy Procure, we actually started off in trying to help SMEs in the F&B sector, right? So as you know, during the current pandemic, the supply chain is broken. So moving goods from one place to another, both in the upstream of the supply chain and downstream of the supply chain, continues to be a challenge, right? And so one of the biggest challenge in which we see in the SMEs is being able to streamline the whole entire supply chain work process, be it whether it is for domestic or for cross-border use, right? So, and furthermore, with the safe management measures in place, with lack of resources, the mundane stuff in which usually happens in the office now becomes a challenge, right? Like things like purchasing, things like reconciliation of invoices, making payments timely to suppliers. All this continues to be a challenge.
Edmund, these mundane kind of challenges, is that because people can't literally turn to each other and work out problems with their colleagues?
So the fact of the matter is that traditionally, buyers and suppliers have some form of back-end systems. They call it ERP or accounting platforms. For ERP platforms, they are more on-premise platforms. So it is siloed in being able to only operate within the office environment. So imagine if you are not able to go down to the office because of safe management measures, you basically can't do anything with it, right? So then the need to have a cloud-based solution, which can then connect or act as a conduit, linking back the data back into the backend infrastructure was absolutely necessary. And that is where Easy Procure came in.
Makes sense. Dennis, I want to go over to you. Since you have such a wide geographic remit, do you agree? Do you see similar challenges across the region? Does it vary by region?
I think there's similarities in most of Asia in terms of what the situation we're going through now, to be honest. I think one of the key things that's most glaring right now is retention of talent. I think most companies are losing their talent and is finding it hard to keep the talent. At the same time, it's finding it hard to attract talent. And SMEs, most SMEs, I mean, are poised for growth, but with the lack of talent and lack of people running the business, I think this is a challenge across all Asia and Africa right now.
Right. Dennis, do you think these challenges vary much, not just by region, but by vertical?
Yes. In fact, a good point that Edmund brought up, like for example, F&B, right? Right now, I think most of our Asian businesses in the F&B sectors are facing certain headwinds. It's not an easy time to navigate. It's amplified by the fact that you can't find good employees, and amplified by your break in supply chains. So I think F&B is a badly hit industry, and of course there are also SMEs supporting the aviation industry. It could be the cleaning companies, it could be the luggage handling companies. All these are really impacted at this moment.
Makes sense. And Edmund and Dennis, are you seeing much differentiation in the technology space or in the startup space in particular?
So Andrew, when we started off SGeBIZ in 2014, productivity solutions were seen by SMEs as a good to have at that point of time. As we continue to evolve, there were SMEs who adopted, we call it the early adopters, back in 2018 and 2019, way before the COVID-19. But what we are seeing increasingly happening in the F&B landscape and the retail landscape is the need to digitize. So SMEs are aware that they have no other choice but to digitize their work processes and embrace digitalization. So we are seeing an increasing trend in terms of companies approaching us and wanting to streamline their work processes and digitize. Yes.
And just to add to that, I guess we're also seeing a rapid rise of fintech companies all across Asia because of what Edmund just mentioned, right? I think the need for digitization has also spawned off kind of a new industry coming in with a new generation of workers, the younger workers that are coming in. And the expectations for these employees are very different vis-a-vis your Gen Z and your millennials, right? So your digital natives are now, if the SME doesn't digitize, then you kind of leave the employees behind who are digital natives. So that's kind of where the situation lies right now.
Yeah, Dennis, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. We're going to get into balancing those needs a little bit, especially with younger workers. Darrell, I want to jump over to you, especially with your product expertise. Like, how do you think business owners should think about pulling their heads up out of all the day-to-day issues that any small business owner has to deal with to address the need for digitalization and future-proofing their businesses?
I think for them to even start on this digital journey, right, they need to define their transformation objectives. What do they want to change? There are a lot of products out there. There are a lot of solutions out there. You can't just pick them and say, okay, I think this one will help with us. They need to define very clearly which area they want to work on. So, for example, do you want to improve your customer experience and loyalty? Or do you want to improve your marketing analytics? Or do you want to optimize your infrastructure in terms of solutions like HR solutions, your distribution channels? Or do you want to also optimize your analytics abilities in terms of getting more data? So, I mean, this is generally maybe just four of the many verticals that they should think on in terms of improving for the SMEs. That's the first step of how do they want to move into this digital journey? Because I've interviewed quite a few SMEs, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to get this solution. The government gives me grant for this solution. I'll get and get and get. At the end of the day, they don't seem to work. Right, so that's all the feedback. There, how come the solutions you're sharing, they don't work? They do work. It's just you're not using it rightly, or you may not have that problem over there. All right, so choosing the right digital strategy for the SMEs is very important. Yeah, that's one of the very first steps to their digital journey. Not just getting a solution and saying that, oh, I'm digital right now. They need to find out where their problem is and start from there and focus on a single vertical first. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I think taking those steps for an SME business owner and understanding kind of each step you need to take to move forward is really important, because in aggregate, it seems like an almost insurmountable task.
Yes. It's like, you ask me to build a house, but where do I start first? Right? I start with the foundation. You cannot say, okay, I want a beautiful window up there, but you haven't even thought out your foundation at all. Yeah.
Yeah, great analogy, Darrell. So Pascal, from your perspective, you're a technology company embedding yourselves into tens of thousands of small businesses across Asia. Like, what do you think about all this? Do you agree with the other panelists that these are the challenges that are being faced by SMEs?
Yes, I do agree, and then all the panelists have made very good points. But I think what is very unique at this period in time actually is, besides the decision-making process, like Darrell mentioned as well, what is really changed, actually, we noticed from our internal stats, is that not only the decision-making process, but actually the openness to start the digital journey in a digital way. So previously, in Asia and all our countries that we're present in, they would the customers would say, "Can you come down to my office? Can you do a demo in person, for example?" And in some of the cities like Jakarta, like Bangkok, it's quite impossible for one account manager to do maybe 10 even or 20 demos a day, even though they're short because of the logistics of it. But now all those SMEs that used to have sort of that roadblock where they'd like to meet someone in person are very open to have Zoom calls or webinars and things like that. So I think this is something that has really helped the SMEs start their journey as well. And that digital hand-holding, I think, is one of the things that is sort of a game changer for the digital journey that is accelerating at the moment.
Yeah, interesting. Dennis, you mentioned earlier younger employees, maybe in the fintech sector or really anywhere. We know that employees today want more perks and benefits, healthcare, insurance cover, training, all of these things. How should an employee or an employer balance those desires of their employees with kind of their business realities?
It's a good question, Andrew. I think, to be honest, and I don't think we found the ultimate balance yet, because you still have a large group of Generation 2 SME owners who are probably your baby boomers, and who's not, to Darrell's points, right? They're probably at the stage, take Singapore, for example, because of the grants that the governments are giving. They'll just jump on the bandwagon and not realizing that, is that something I really need? Did it solve my problem? The government gives me a grant, let's go for it. And they buy certain software and then they realize, actually, I don't need this. So that's the disconnect between, which I call it, to quote and unquote Darrell's point of a problem statement, right? Because the problem amplifies when you start getting employees who are digital natives. They have tools, then they realize, what are these tools supposed to do? It doesn't give me productivity, in Edmund's words. And to Pascal's point, how do I can't relate to my employer, right? Because the tools that you give me are either dated or they are not really relevant. So by and large, I think the industry, for our industry, for the insurance industry, we're also going through that change to really understand where do we strike the balance. Because truth to be told, just to elaborate a bit more, because there's no, how do I say, company loyalty anymore, to speak it very plainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you think this is like one of the trends that's driving that inevitability in digitization? Like companies, like I think all of us on this panel fundamentally agree that it will happen. So then the question is, as an SME, what steps can you take to ease that transition and maybe take advantage of being an early mover?
I think the first question, which is the first question every SME owner should ask himself, which is what Darrell brought it up, is what am I exactly transforming? Is it relevant for my business? Right. Take Singapore as an example, because we are all in Singapore. You can see there's enough media coverage on hawkers collecting e-payments right now. That's probably the first relevancy. I allow people to pay with e-payments, but it might not be so in places like Indonesia with your warungs and all that, right? So I guess there will be benefits in early adopting these digital initiatives, but we got to find the relevancy.
Yeah, Darrell, I wanted to ask: are there, in your experience, efficiencies gained from a company by going digital that might allow that employer to offer more to their employees than they otherwise would have been able to?
Yeah. So I'll use let's say the hawker example, which Dennis brought up, right? So, in Singapore, we're going like cashless or at least e-payment for these hawkers. One part of it, they do gain, right? Let's say a typical hawker with one assistant. They will get the data, right? If you go cashless, firstly, you get the analytics, right? Then, if they know how to use the analytics, they will know, okay, when's my peak hour? If I know when's my peak hour, then I will know, okay, do I need 2 helpers over here, 1 helper over here, at this point of time, or how do they take their breaks? I mean, I'm just giving this random example, but it actually makes the hawkers' life and the employees' life, much better in terms of decision making wise, based on the analytics, perspective. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. So maybe as a small business owner, instead of thinking like, oh, I need to go cashless because the world's going cashless, you can think of it in terms of, if I go cashless, I'll also get these analytics, which helps me run my business more efficiently, which means that I can actually offer maybe my employees better pay or benefits or insurance.
Yeah.
You have to think a little bit about connecting all those dots.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Edmund, is this typical of conversations that you're having with SMEs in the region? I know you work with so many as a consultant.
So, Andrew, yes, what I usually hear from the SMEs is the challenge in being able to manage the employees' expectation and aligning it with the company's aspiration. Okay, and that is because, as you know, employees constantly would like to have better medical coverage, would like to see improvement in terms of their remuneration packages, in terms of, there are many things in which employees would want. But especially during times like this, where companies and SMEs are basically trying to survive, one of the key things in which they really look at is how to keep themselves nimble. And that is meaning to say, how do they trim on their OPEX, thus allowing survivability. So then, of course, there is no balance like what Dennis was saying earlier. There's still no perfect answer. But one thing is for sure is that employers continue to strive to meet employee satisfaction, right? By constantly reviewing policies and trying to find what is available in the market. This is just not only for employee benefits, but also to increase productivity and make life easy for employees such that they are able to contribute more.
Yeah, very interesting. Pascal, in your experience working with so many companies across the region, are there practical or maybe even like feature product-driven things that employers have been able to offer to their employees that's net new after going through this process of digitizing their back office operations?
Yes, so I think what the basic things that you can see change, I'll not even go to benefits. I'll start even in the basic, where previously, if an employee wanted to go and get a bank loan with, for example, Darrell's bank, or go and get insurance with Dennis's corporation, they'd have to go to the HR person. They'd have to ask for a printout of salary slips and get a lot of paper documentation proofs. But now with the back office automated, all they need to do is they go into their app, they download it and email it across, and that journey starts to become better. And I think when we start in those basics as well, then we move on to kind of the benefit segment. Like everyone on the panel has said, every employer wants to balance that, giving that benefits to the employees as much as they can without hurting the company as well, because at the end of the day, it's a balance, right? And I think that going digital helps us collect all the data that we need to be able to understand better, because all this is about is understanding your business as best as you can and acting upon that information that you have at hand. So I think that, like, for example, the payment collections, like Darrell mentioned, Do I have one staff in the afternoon or two staff? That saves a lot of money, and that business continuity then goes on longer. You have a longer runway, you get more profits, then you get to do better things for your employees. So I think the digital journey is very important to be able to understand, not just giving a benefit, like here's 10 benefits that we want to give you, but actually giving, even if it's less than 10, two. These are two very relevant benefits that I know will benefit you. So I think that is the key also to the digital journey and the effects that it has to offering better benefits to the employees.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think thinking about it from the perspective of an employee is helpful as well. I mean, I know for myself, like day-to-day work productivity tools have been fairly common for a long time now. So things like Slack or, collaboration tools, it's sort of an expected thing in the workplace. And now I think more and more, I would be, just speaking for me personally, it would be quite annoying if I worked at a company where every time I needed something with my insurance or my payroll, I had to go like queue up and talk to someone as opposed to just opening an app.
Yes, agreed. I think everyone in this room agrees greatly with
that. 100%.
Yeah, sure. Edmund, I want to go back to you. We know that we've done some research, and we're actually going to publish a report with HReasily in the coming weeks on the state of the ecosystem. But we know that less than 50% of regional startups are using digital tools for things like expense claims, performance appraisals, training their staff. In your experience, and we touched on a few of these, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. But in your experience, why is it so hard for SMEs and for startups to take those first steps towards digitizing their business?
So, Andrew, in my viewpoint, I probably can relate to this as when I first started off as SGeBIZ. As a startup, right, you basically start a company without any processes. You basically don't have any technologies. You're basically building it from scratch. So everything happens on a reactive basis and not on a proactive basis. So then along the way, as you grow the company, when it passes the 3-year, 4-year stage, and you have more and more employees, you will have identified that there is a need to be able to have a process, a HR construct, which helps you to manage employees. So one of the things in which we have put in place in terms of processes is Individual Development Assessment Plan, which I call it IDAP. That allows us to align the company's aspiration to the employees' aspirations too. Okay, so that is one thing. Second thing is, as we go, we realize that, okay, expense claim management or reimbursement, whatever claims in which the employees has, continues to be a manual process, because investing into a technology at that point of time with just few employees might not make sense. So we can still accept the fact that, okay, manual will do because you only have very little employees. But as we scale, as we grow, when the number of employees grow, this becomes a challenge to do it manually. So it's all about where you are, in which stage of the game you are. Either you are in the early stage of the startup life, you are a profit-making SME, then the needs change. Based on the needs, you will identify and you will look for solutions, and then you will have the action plan to be able to adopt to such solutions and put in place to support the infrastructure and the processes.
That's great. I mean, really practical tips and good framework on how to think about this as a business owner. Dennis, in your perspective and experience, what do you think that companies are putting at risk by resisting this digital transformation?
If I put it bluntly, everything's at risk, because your new business will be at risk, because your customers today are also expecting a digital journey, just like what Pascal brought up earlier on. Gone are the days where you do a physical demo, you go to the office and do the demo and try to close the sale. I think a lot of things are done through webinars now or online applications. So that's, your new business is at risk. Your retention of employees is at risk. Because I remember 20 years ago when I ran my own businesses before I joined the corporate world, the infrastructure is very different. I'm talking about infrastructure in the past. You literally go to a photocopier machine to do stuff, right? To scan documents, and nowadays you just take a picture. So therein lies the kind of what Edmund brought up, the waves that's happening, and Darrell brought this very interesting point earlier on the need to transform, and also Pascal brought up on the ways of doing business. They've all changed. So if your business can't embark on a meaningful digitalization journey, your new business would suffer, the employees would also suffer, and hence I think then there's a breakdown.
Yeah, it makes sense. The crazy kind of mind-blowing part to me is you almost expect more traditional businesses, like we talked a bit about at the F&B industry, maybe the retail industry, to be a little bit slower to make those changes. Maybe they're owned by the previous generation. But what's so shocking is that these same problems exist with technology startups. If you talk to entrepreneurs in the region, these are like the brilliant minds creating the next generation of tech startups here in Asia. And they have the same exact problems in their back office, where they can build these incredible consumer apps or fix something in the enterprise, but they at the end of the day, they're a business and they need to set up the process to run that business.
Exactly right. So I think it's mind-boggling sometimes to sit down and think about it, because whilst one end, you get to your point, right, Andrew, you get these tech startups, swanky startups that realize that they don't have a HR process, right, on an onboarding of an employee, or they don't even have a invoice kind of engine to help them collect their bills. So that's really a bizarre moment, and you couple that with the gig economy that's rising now, right? Your digital natives that I don't want to do a job for 5 years, I want to do a 6 months gig. Yep. And then couple that with no wrong invoicing and wrong HR tools. I think it's a crazy world out there.
Adding to what Dennis said, and a good point on what you said as well, Andrew, is that it's kind of like that theory where a plumber's house has a leaky faucet. It's because he's concentrating on fixing everyone's taps that he doesn't fix his own. And I think in the beginning as well, I mean, we're not ashamed to say, even at HReasily, when we went at warp speed, we kind of prioritized certain processes as well, and we had to go back and say, okay, we definitely need to automate this, even though we're a tech company as well. And I think to a lot of SMEs as well, in one shape or form, what happens is that, okay, I actually run a front-facing business, so I don't need that HR process yet. I can do it over the weekend. I have my Excel file. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do it. And then when you spend 1 or 2 hours when you're still growing, that's fine. That's acceptable, like Edmund said. But when you grow and that pile becomes bigger and longer, next thing you know, your weekend's gone. You don't have time with your kids to go out and play in the playground, or you don't have time to spend with your family. And then usually it takes that point in time to realize I need to take back control, and then they start getting that process as well. So I think that's why the education process of not waiting till that point comes is very important as well. And I think the silver lining in the whole situation we're in at the moment is that business owners actually have more time at their hands in front of the computer to actually go and start that process as well. Because I'm sure, Edmund knows this very well. And I think to some degree, Dennis and Darrell as well, is that even though a customer is interested in digital, even though he says yes today, it might be 3 months later before he actually starts that process. So yeah, I think,
absolutely
changing for sure.
Absolutely, Pascal. Agree with you on this. Yeah.
Yeah, Darrell, what do you think to that point? Like SMEs that are intimidated by the cost or process of digitizing, what can they do to get started? What do you think is like the best first step to take?
I think the very best first step to take is to see what free solutions are out there. There are many free solutions out there where you can try it for free. There are a lot of platforms, let's say for analytics, right? There's, Google platforms, Facebook Insights. You can start off something simple like this first. Assessing what's free out there, or free storages, Google Clouds. You start with very simple things. Transformation doesn't have to be something big. You can be just one small part. All my Excel files are not on my desktop anymore, stuck over there. My Excel files can be on just a Google Cloud, right? For a typical business, something small, right? That's the first step. The second one, of course, our government has been pushing for grants, for them to move into more digital. And that is if they have a very clear strategy of where they want to fix, right? Yeah, well, I was talking just now, right? The four verticals, where do they want to go and fix that area? Then we can maybe go for a paid solution, or there's an extended need, right? So starting off with the free products first, then go for the paid ones, which is sponsored by the government. And I think that is a very good first step to take for most of them. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, Darrell, that's a great, so in anticipation of this conversation, I spoke to a few startup founders that are in my network in the region, and I wanted to get the whole panel, your thoughts on some of the questions that they asked me. So one in particular was an accounting SaaS product in Indonesia. And what he found was that small businesses in Indonesia are very adverse to paying a monthly subscription fee for a SaaS product. And Pascal, maybe you have some experience with this. So what he found was that he needed to create more innovative monetization models, where he would do things like, if he's enabling payment or payroll processing, to take a fee from that, as opposed to charging a monthly fee. I guess the open question to the panel is, have you in your businesses experienced sort of cultural differences on how SMEs across different countries in the region want to engage with companies like yours to pay for these enhancements and digitizations?
Definitely. And I think one of the key things also is in different countries, in especially Southeast Asia, for example, there are different level of support from the government as well. And like Darrell says, for example, in Singapore, you have great grants that help you get free solutions to try, and then upgrade from there once you have assessed that this is your need and you need to take a more holistic solution as well. And I know that even Edmund will agree on that, is that there must be that free portion to try. I know it's a very old free versus free trial, right? But at the end of the day, the free version is like a free trial, trying the basics to understand what you need. And I think that, for example, for our business, when you start building in and putting in all your information, it becomes something you rely on, and it's very hard to move as well. So we don't find that ability to charge based on the product that we have such a big problem, because people really do need them. And there are certain countries where if you give it free for something that is very, very sensitive in nature, where you have a lot of sort of information, they get suspicious as well. So there's two sides of the coins to this as well. So I guess for all companies like myself and Edmund, and even for the bigger ones like Dennis and Darrell's shops, you need to look at what's going on and really proactively look at the data that you're getting, what people are using, what people are willing to do. And there you'll be able to serve your customers better, but also find those points of where that value of your product really lies and really monetize on that part. So then it becomes a very fair trade-off, where the customer really is paying for something that they really need. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. I have some sense of how you all might answer this given our conversation today, but another question that a local entrepreneur asked me, she has a small company, she wanted to know how to measure the actual ROI of these efforts. So it's like, okay, I know I need to do this. I kind of know what the next steps are going to be. I know that in theory, it makes me more competitive in the market among talent. It helps my teams be more efficient, but how do I actually measure the ROI of each dollar spent on digitizing my back office?
Actually, I have a situation like this where I'll give an example of a customer I actually met. So one of my sales account manager asked if I could follow down and speak to a customer that really was trying to understand the ROI if they actually use HReasily versus the Excel file. So we did a simple comparison, and I asked, how many days does it take for you to run your HR processes at the end of the month? And the business owner said, it takes me 2.5 days. And I said, well, how many employees do you need to take that? And he said, 1 senior and 1 junior. And I asked him, okay, please, can you calculate how much salary do you pay these 2 people over the 2.5 days to actually do this? And I said, look, try our free trial, and we'll help you upload all the information you need to get started. And they did. And then I went back and said, now how long does it take you? And it took him half an hour after uploading the claims and stuff like that. And I asked him to compare how much he paid for our subscription versus how much he paid for the salary for the people to do that. And I know this is more on markets like Singapore and Hong Kong, and it's very different in Indonesia or Thailand, but these are the simple ways that you can start calculating what your ROI is. But again, back to Darrell's point as well, is you need to understand what problem you are solving to be able to really measure that ROI.
Maybe
I think Pascal has a, sorry, Danny's gonna go.
Go ahead, Darrell. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think Pascal has a very interesting point when you're describing, using a solution for, to help them with the HR payments. I think the ROI also comes from the employees who are looking for their payrolls, their benefits as well. Back to the same thing in the report itself, right? If employees are looking for benefits, this is one part where you actually take care of your internal staff first, as like a intangible kind of ROI. I mean, ROI can come in terms of like a green dollar, exact dollars, or in blue dollars. I'll call this kind of like a blue dollar, right? You raise staff morale, you raise your company's popularity, in terms of hiring people that, I've got this benefit, please join us kind of thing. These are more in the long run, very intangible returns, but very important for SMEs, because to hire the right talent, or in fact, hiring anyone to join the SME today, it's kind of difficult, especially in Singapore, where more people say, we work for an SME because they know I would rather work for a corporate per se, unless it's a fintech, right? So these sort of benefits actually gives the extra, perks for people to want to join the SME. I mean, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, it makes sense, Darrell. And that's always a struggle for any entrepreneur. Dennis, what are your thoughts?
So I just give an example of Prudential, right? So, I mean, we do sell employee benefits, and we also have group insurance. In the old days, before we digitalized the effort, the sales cycle is close to 3 days of tons of forms going to see the SME owners and just paperwork non-stop. And many of our agents across the region has given up, because by the time I'm done with the paperwork, and if you're Indonesia or Jakarta, by the time I travel back to my office, a week has passed, and then the customer changes his mind. So when we started to digitalize the sales process, the sales was done within half an hour, because everything's on the tool, and so it drives efficiency. So you can't measure the actual dollars, but within that 3 hours, you could have seen 6 customers vis-a-vis, you see 1 customer in a day. So your productivity goes up naturally because the tools are enabled for you. So that's where in Prudential we experience the digitalization efficiency.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think we spoke a lot today about back office, but it's really important for front office too, making sure that your sales teams are productive, your product people are communicating efficiently with engineers. It's every part of any business today needs to be digital.
Agree.
Edmund, any final thoughts for our viewers on what they should be thinking about as they leave this session?
Yes, thanks, Andrew. One of the key things in which we always have to ask is the why. Why do we need to do this? And that when we ask the question, why do we need to do this? It is more often than not, we understand that we are facing challenges. And once we have identified what is the challenge, we will then have to basically be upfront about what is our expectation in terms of the desired outcome, right? That's the second step. And then we have to analyze and see what is the cost involved in the current process, right? And then we will have to go around, source, evaluate, and do some analysis in terms of what is available out there, which can support the project outcome or the desired outcome. Then you adopt the solution, you implement the solution, and you constantly review it. So Andrew, I would like to give an example which really happens. Many SMEs today, they don't really know what is the real ROI of doing something. But I give you a simple example of an SME. Today, an SME who does invoice reconciliation manually it might be using one resource headcount, spending 30 minutes, paying them $10 an hour or $20 an hour. That equates to about $10. Now imagine if that process is automated and you can basically get the invoices reconciled within seconds. Imagine the amount of savings in which you have enabled. And now the efficiency gain in terms of the employee being able to spend this time more on the more important things like data analytics, or focusing on growing the company, because when the company grows, naturally the employees grow together with the company.
That's great, Edmund. I
Thanks.
also really appreciate the very practical frameworks for our listeners, because it's one thing to talk about these in theory and concept, but to give people the steps that they need to take, I think is really helpful.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Pascal, any last thoughts from you?
I think Edmund hit it on the nail as well, where I think they really need to ask the why. Exactly the big point that Darrell will point out with this very clever analogy. And I think once you know why, then the how part is where companies like ours, Edmund, Prudential, CIMB, and I think a lot of the big institutions and startups like ours are educating people on how to get started. So I think that once you've decided the why, and then you go to the how, and I think just do it. Kind of that's my advice, because I was an SME owner myself, and I came to this point because I was frustrated with all the options out there. And now that I know that they are, we've implemented a lot of new solutions, and we've cut down our processing time for all our internal processes by 5 days at the minimum. And getting started also for us was taking a couple of days to actually meet the people and all that. But now we go through the digital journey, and we've onboarded 2 new solutions as well. And we did it over Zoom, 15 minutes explanation, 5 minutes onboarding, done. So it's not hard as it used to be. So advice again, just do it.
Let's do it. I think that's a really good place to end it. Dennis, Edmund, Darrell, Pascal, thank you so much for your generosity and your time today. And Pascal, thank you for your continued support of entrepreneurs in Asia.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.